This week in 2018, the Wells Fargo Center and the entire city of Philadelphia would change forever. A moment so influential and so important we can do an entire show on it. Gritty, the Flyers mascot, made his debut during the Flyers' first home game on October 9th last year. He came in like a wrecking ball and made his first impression to the fans by slipping on the ice during the game. Gritty has gotten national recognition for his antics. He has been voted NHLPA Mascot of the Year, and he has also appeared on the Jimmy Fallon Show and was formerly honored by the Philadelphia City Council. We can certainly expect more accolades to come Gritty's way.
7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
You'll never have the sacred stone.
Oh, this you crazy mother.
Thank you for tuning in to another edition of Sports Talk Philadelphia here on LaSalle TV. I'm your host, Josh Abrams. Today we're going to be talking about the Eagles and then the Flyers. But first, before we get into that, I'm going to introduce my panel. I have Jack Cashman making his second appearance here on Sports Talk, and Gia Lancey, of course, joining us. Before we get into the Eagles talk, we're going to talk some headlines. And the first big headline, one that we just found out about today, Gabe Kapler is finally fired as the Phillies manager. It has been a long time coming, even though he has only been here for 2 full seasons. I'd like to think that for the most part, we are all very pleased with this news.
Good riddance. The analytics that he had just were not working with the team we have. I mean, the injuries, everything that played into it. I don't think he got a lot of help from the front office, but he didn't do anything to save his job.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you can blame him 100%. You know I'm a big Gabe the Babe fan, so, like, I'm sad about it. But, I mean, the biggest thing with him, for me, was, like, his positive outlook. I mean, I know he didn't do what he should, but
Right.
I'll be a little sad.
Yeah, I mean, perhaps he was a little too positive, though. And again,
Yeah.
It's tough to gauge this kind of situation because he is such a positive guy, and he does look towards the future. But I just don't think his mindset, and the organization really bought into him because of his mindset, and I think it was just a toxic kind of way to go about it.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with getting behind your players, but he was just making excuses for them left and right, and they were just playing very bad baseball for at least a month and a half. Right. So.
Yeah, and I think his emotions were all over the place. I mean, like, there was just some games where he would, like, freak out, and we were like, all right, well, that's not that deep.
Not
but, like,
characteristic, yeah.
Yeah, and it just really didn't go with it, and I don't know. I think that, like, a fresh start for them is needed, so.
And the signal for the end for me was when they got Charlie Manuel and started to do good for 2 straight weeks. I mean, there had to have been something going on there.
Yeah, that's going to be another topic of discussion eventually when we come closer towards the season in terms of who's going to replace Gabe Kapler. The second headline, and this would have been just as big as the Kapler headline if he didn't get fired. Ben Simmons, even though it was against a Chinese team, it was a preseason. They're just getting back into action. Ben Simmons hits a three-pointer. Not only did he hit the three-pointer, but he pulled up. He didn't catch the pass and shoot it in rhythm. He pulled up in front of a defender's face and didn't even hit the rim. He switched it.
Nothing but net.
This guy's special. If he develops the jump shot that I keep seeing with the videos he was doing all summer, he's going to be very special.
We're not going to be asking him to do that every time. I mean,
Joel kind of bullied him into shooting that 3 there, but. I 1 for 1 or
right,
for 3?
Yeah, 1 for 1 in terms of legitimate three-pointers. I mean, it's got to be a real positive sign to see, right?
I mean, I think so. It's hard to say, though. I mean, last season, like, we were thinking the same thing. You know what I mean? But I'm positive. I'm optimistic about it. And, like, I think, like, I wanted to see it in playoffs last year. Like, Jimmy Buckets was saying it from the sideline. You know what I mean? But, you know, as long as he feels confident in it, I'm all about it.
Do you have anything else to add, Jack?
I mean, this is just going to draw the defense up. It's going to let Joel play in the paint better. That shot is going to be available for at least the first 2.5 months of the season. Yeah, he's got to take all the chances he's got. If he can hit it 30%.
Right. I think the fact that we're just seeing him take it is a really positive sign. So let's move on to Eagles talk, and perhaps one of the more convincing wins of the season. The Eagles win 31-6 over the New York Jets, and it was a very convincing win. Like I said, the defense was historically great, even though it was, again, the Luke Falk-led New York Jets. What are your guys' takeaways from that? There were a lot of positives, but after you guys let out your thoughts, there are some negatives that I would like to discuss. But go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, we all have to agree that it was just the Jets. Le'Veon Bell touched the ball probably 85% of the time for the Jets. So the Eagles are very good when it comes to stopping the run and then playing off of that, and you saw they got 10 sacks from it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this game was about comfort. And, I think Carson Wentz really needs to feel comfortable, but I think the whole team needs to feel comfortable. And I think that was the biggest thing that we got out of this game.
Yeah, and it was certainly positive to see the defense step up like that, especially because coming into this game, I think we only had 3 sacks. It was only good for about a sack, not even per game, but historically great. I mean, I believe this was the very first game in NFL history where a team got 10 sacks and also had a strip sack and an interception be returned for a touchdown. The defense scored 14 points for us on Sunday. This is where I'm going to transition into the negative aspect of it because the offense only put up 17 points. And I know the Jets defense is not pedestrian by any means. They have a very solid defense for not having many big names on that roster anymore. But nevertheless, we know how talented our offense is, and I think that it's kind of pathetic in my eyes that we were only able to put up 17 points.
I get what you're saying there. I mean, still no Deshaun. We all thought Alshon, this was going to be like his big game back playing an okay defense.
Right.
And, the offense just didn't need to put up more than 2 touchdowns. It was let the defense bully the offense, the Jets offense. So
I guess I'm letting the drop passes get to my head. We added 3 more drop passes to our resume. I mean, it was just very frustrating.
And we had a couple deep balls that didn't get penalized that, should have been for defensive penalty.
What are your thoughts, Jay?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. And I think that, we just need to get into it, you know what I mean? And I think once Deshaun Jackson is back, I'm going to be happy. And, I think he's going to be killing it. But I don't know what it is. I think that they just need to step up, but I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know how long it's going to take.
Sure, and part of me really thinks that it has something to do with the offensive coordinator, Mike Groh. That's another conversation for another show because I think we could go on forever about that. But it's pretty clear that the offense just isn't the same anymore. So let's talk about the players that did step up in that game. Orlando Scandrick, we signed him in the offseason, but then we sent him to the practice squad because we figured we didn't need him until our cornerback started to go down, and then we re-signed him to the team this week, and he obviously steps up big. Again, it isn't as big of a moment because it is the New York Jets, but the Jets scored that touchdown off of that short field, and then they get the ball back. They could have scored to make it a 12-point game, but instead Scandrick really put the dagger in him.
Yeah, that's another thing. I mean, Scandrick's a veteran guy. He's not a rookie. He knows what he's doing. He knows a lot of systems, and he was great coming off the edge. He had 3 pressures in that sack for a touchdown, of course.
I think it's just so funny that, I watched that happen, and I was like, who is that? You know what I mean? And it just happened the week before that. So,
Right.
I mean, it really worked out for us that
It
he was in the right spot at the right time.
It does feel a lot like the Saints game last year where we had Cravion LeBlanc and Devontae Bosby starting, and I just thought, who are these guys?
Right.
So we're getting to that point again. I don't like that for the defense, but I think Mills will come back soon, Darby, and we'll be all right.
Right.
Which I don't know if this is a great thing, but it's
I
fine.
know that's another concerning thing. But nevertheless, let's look at the upcoming schedule real quick before we move on to our picks and our scouting reports. We're going to go to Minnesota, and then after that, we gotta stay on the road. We got to go to Dallas, and then we got to go to Buffalo, and those are I'd say very good teams, above average teams. Can we make it out of this road trip?
I think we'll be all right. Dallas has definitely showed that they're not who we thought they were from the first 3 weeks. Minnesota is having a hard time throwing the ball, and we're very good at stopping the run. And Buffalo is always tough to play in Buffalo Mania, but I think we can stop Frank Gore enough and put the game in Josh Allen's hands.
Yeah, I mean, I'm worried about the Cowboys game just because you know how that always is. And I'm a little bit nervous about the Vikings game just because I think that they always put up a good game against us. But I think it's just the next few games is a tough schedule, so I'm a little nervous. But I think coming off this win I feel comfortable.
Yeah, and that's certainly a positive thing. We did what we had to do against the Jets to prepare ourselves for the Vikings. So speaking of the Vikings, let's go to the scouting reports real quick. The Vikings are a very talented team, and for as much as they have sort of underperformed, they have arguably the greatest running back talent in the league in Dalvin Cook. I mean, everybody knew who this guy was coming out of college. He was, one of the better running backs in the draft, and he still is right now. It's a shame he had to get hurt 2 years ago. But he's a very talented running back, and probably by far the most talented running back we're going to see this year.
His rookie year, he was leading the league in all rushing yards until he got hurt. So the talent was obviously there. I wish they would have had him 2 years ago, but not for the Eagles' sake, of course. But
yeah, I mean,
But yeah, I mean, Dalvin Cook, the Eagles' rushing defense is going to have to figure out a way to stop him. We're not really concerned about our rushing defense, but again, the talent level we're seeing here is all above all.
Even in the Jets game, we let Le'Veon Bell get away with too many outside runs that got a first down. So if Dalvin Cook will not, give up those opportunities, we're going to have to really stop in the backfield to put the game on Kirk Cousins.
And real quick before we go to picks, we got to talk about Danielle Hunter. Anybody who knows the Vikings defense well knows that they're led by Everson Griffin. And then in the middle in the backfield, you have Anthony Barr and Eric Kendricks, Xavier Rhodes. They have a bunch of talented players, but this Danielle Hunter guy is probably he's probably their best defensive lineman, I would say.
He was going through some psychological troubles when we made the Super Bowl run, so we didn't have to go through him. But he is a force to be reckoned with on the offensive line, and the offensive line this year for the Eagles is not what they were.
Sure. So let's go into our picks now. This week, we are feeling optimistic. Some of us more so than others, but we do have the Eagles winning. I have them winning by a score of 28-24. Look, if we're gonna beat this Vikings team, we're gonna have to pressure Kirk Cousins because Kirk Cousins does not do well under pressure by any means. Usually I would pick the veteran in Brandon Graham, but I'm gonna go with the young guy Derek Barnett. He's having an amazing season so far. Cashman, your pick?
For me, I went a little out on the edge. This is a total defense game for me. We're gonna stuff Dalvin Cook under 75 yards. We're going to make Kirk Cousins throw the ball. Rasul Douglas will have an interception to clinch the game.
And you have the highest spread or the highest margin out of everybody, so you're pretty confident. But Gia, you're kind of conservative just like me in terms of your pick.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you should ever overlook the Vikings against us. And I was expecting Alshon Jeffrey to have like a really good game last week, so I'm expecting him this week. I think he's going to really show off his skills. So.
Yeah, and we're certainly looking forward to this Eagles-Vikings game. It's going to be tough because they always play us tough, but nevertheless, I think we're feeling confident that we're going to move up to 4-2 this year. We're going to take a quick commercial. When we come back, we're going to talk Flyers, so don't go anywhere. Stay tuned.
They're kind of close to an egg.
An egg?
An egg.
How does a general lose to an egg?
The internet's to an egg.
There is a show for that. It's called Backstage Pass.
Do you see the new library plan?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, they're doing stuff in the library.
Oh. In the library?
Yeah.
The new library.
There is a show for that called LTV News where the action never stops.
I wonder how the basketball team is.
There is a show for that called SportsTalk.
So are you a Carson Wentz or Nick Foles guy?
More of a Nate Sudfeld team.
Oh, really? Interesting. Wonder where we can hear about the Philly sports.
There's a show for that called SportsTalk Philadelphia.
You like Family Feud?
Yeah.
You like all shows like that?
Yeah.
I wonder if LaSalle has a show like that. That'd be kind of cool.
There is a show for that called Q&A.
I really wish that we could just display our talents.
Yeah, me too.
There is a show for that called Sports Got Talent.
All this and more on LaSalle TV.
You watch. You shouldn't be watching this. You should be watching LaSalle TV. Hey, watch LaSalle TV.
You watch.
Man, Keegan's taking his you watch thing way too seriously.
You know you watch LaSalle TV.
Welcome back to Sports Talk Philly here on LaSalle TV. Gia steps off for Flyers Talk and is replaced by Jamie Smith. And in case you guys are wondering why we have the cones here, it is because we want to warn you that we do have hot takes on this show. So please be aware. Let's get right into Flyers Talk. And 2 games so far, pretty positive start. They've each scored 4 goals. It was a convincing win last night against the Devils. But to start the season, we went to Prague to play the Blackhawks. I wasn't really sure the motivation behind that. It was an international series, of course, but nevertheless, a very convincing start to the season. I know it's a small sample size. It's only 2 games, but it's got to be very, very positive to see that.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be tough to start the year not only on the road but in a different country. So it's playing to those strengths. But last night's game with a shutout with Carter Hart, these Flyers look real this year.
Yeah, we had a very iffy preseason, and I was not feeling that confident about our team because those preseason games, I think we only won one of the 5 I think we had. But we came out on top in that Chicago game. I think that whenever we go up against Chicago, it's always a great matchup, and I'm so glad that we beat them because it's always a great matchup.
A little payback from
2008.
From
2010.
Yeah, the ultimate payback's got to come later on in the season. But again, it was just very great game in Prague, and I think the big thing for me was that the Flyers got out early. They got out early in the first period, and they really just kept it on. And they have not trailed yet in either of these games, so that's got to be a very good thing. And Carter Hart, I mean, my goodness, he is something else. I mean, we knew how good this kid was coming into last year. We just needed to see him start a regular season.
I can't even talk about how long I've been waiting for the Flyers to have a franchise goalie like this guy. I mean, from Brizgalov to Bobrovsky, all these other guys, Boucher, it's so so heartwarming to have Carter Hart.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like we've been waiting for a guy like this for so long, and he's so young that he has so much ahead of him in his career. I know, every time I go to a game, everyone would be like, put in Carter Hart, put in Carter Hart. Everyone was always waiting for him to come up, and I think that he has totally proven himself to be a franchise goalie.
Yeah, and I don't think there was really much of a surprise with that, but the fact that he goes out on the international and national stage and performs the way that we expect him to perform, that is obviously a very positive sign. So another really good thing about this team, and I think he is the MVP through 2 games so far, is Travis Konechny. Sure. I mean, without him, we're not winning that game against the Blackhawks. And, he also contributed another goal yesterday in what was a very balanced scoring attack. But that game in Chicago, he was phenomenal. I mean, he took advantage of almost every opportunity that he had. You saw on the graphic there, he's taken 5 shots on goal, but he's scored 3 of them. I mean, again, very small sample size so far, but it's got to be encouraging, right?
High efficiency, 5 points. He's +3 on the year. I think only one other player is +3. He's on the ice and winning every matchup he gets.
Yeah, for sure. Just like you said, it's a small sample size, but 3 goals out of 5 shots you're taking, that has to mean something. That's a very good percentage to start the season with.
Yeah, and I think another thing is that, it's not that we expect to see that kind of contribution from the normal guys like Couturier, Giroux, Voracek, but the fact that Konechny is adding that kind of efficiency in addition to what we have on offense, that's got to be a great sign for the offense. And I don't think we were really concerned about our offense. We seem to be more fluid in every aspect, but the consistency so far, that's really the big thing with this team.
Yeah, we need somebody to come in and take Wayne Simmons points that he's not going to get this year. So.
Yeah, for sure. I think that we're a very good mix of young and old talent this year, and I think that defense is something that's always been very iffy for us, and I think that we've been playing like some of our best defensive games that we've ever had, and that's something that like we love to see because our defense has always been something that we've struggled with in the past.
You could probably put that on the offseason moves we made, traded for a couple defensemen.
Right, yeah, and I think Alain Vigneault being behind the guys now on the bench, that plays a huge role in it. Look, I mean, Dave Hackstall, it's almost, I don't want to compare him to Gabe Kapler, but we're always coming back to the Phillies. But look, the mindset that Hackstall had was it's similar in the way that Kapler had it for the Phillies. It's just not a winning mentality. You saw whenever the Flyers, no matter how well or bad the Flyers were doing, Hackstall would always stand back there with a blank look on his face, no emotion. You couldn't tell if he was angry, happy, sad, the whole 9 yards. Vigneault is a seasoned veteran. He's been to 2 Stanley Cups. He's just a very well-experienced head coach. I think having that for this team, especially these young guys, has got to be at least a stepping point.
Yeah, he's definitely better than our previous Hackstall, but I was really a little upset that we didn't go out and get Joel Quenneville last year, longtime manager for the Blackhawks. I mean, that guy comes with a winning record, but hopefully this guy has a little more experience going forward and we can make a push.
Yeah, I agree. I'm glad you mentioned Joe Quenneville because I was really rooting for us to get him too. But I just could tell, like, when we had Hackstall, like, the morale was very low behind, like, with the team, and it just didn't look like a healthy environment for us. And I just think that was what was killing us. Besides, like, the playing, it's just like you need a good coach behind you, and I just don't think we had that at that time.
Yeah. So looking at the upcoming schedule now, they have a Canada road trip coming up. And these aren't necessarily great teams by any means. Calgary is the only team out of that 3 that made the playoffs last year. But we're going to have to prove ourselves on the road, and I think this is a really good test to start out the season. What do you guys think?
Oh, definitely. Anytime you have to go 3 straight games in Canada, and road trips in general in hockey are just usually tough. You don't sweep them often, so this will be a great test for the Flyers early on.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that we're always good up against Canadian teams, and I want to see that we'll pull out with these 3 games. And definitely, like, with road trips, like you said, like, it's very hard to make a sweep. But honestly, I have confidence with these last 2 games that we played. I have a lot of confidence in us.
Yeah, and that's certainly fair. And like I said, consistency with this team has always been the biggest issue because much like other Philadelphia sports teams, they're just as consistent as they are inconsistent. But looking at the NHL as a whole. Especially the Metropolitan Division, I haven't personally seen how our division rivals are doing, but do we feel confident enough that we can at least finish top 3 in the division this year? I know it's, again, small sample size, 2 games, but what do you guys think?
We could definitely go as good as top 3, but I'm just as good with a wild card spot. Just to get into the playoffs in hockey is a huge thing. You could turn around from any position you are at.
Yeah, the Flyers, as much as I love them, very, very unpredictable team. The Flyers are the first team I've ever seen go on a 10-game winning streak and then not make the playoffs in the same year. So you really never know what happens. But honestly, by the way, like, we got the new coach, we have new players, we've made a lot of new trades, and we have a lot of young and old talent. I think that, this year will be different. I can feel it.
Yeah, and I think the New Jersey game last night really showed us how the potential that this team has in terms of spreading the puck around. And like I said earlier, I mean, the power play is looking really good, and their passing, especially in enemy territory, is amazing. And they seem to be really taking advantage of these power play opportunities.
Yeah, it seemed like we could never get the puck out of the offensive zone and clear it. So this is a huge difference from last year to this year.
Such a minuscule detail, but again, it could lead to some of that New Jersey game could have gone horribly, but again,
definitely.
Yeah, the Carter Hart and just the entire team stepping up was really a positive thing. So we're going to move on to our rants for this week. And I'm going to start off talking about the NFL. And, usually we talk about the NFL, you're going to go right to the referees. I'm looking at the statistics portion of the NFL because I know it's set in stone and it's been like this since the beginning of time, but I don't like how quarterbacks are charged with drop passes, specifically drop passes that turn into interceptions. We see it all the time. And we see it all the time with the Eagles, too, because we're a league-leading tied with Tennessee in drop passes so far this year. And, so many people, especially the national media, bash Carson Wentz for not being able to step up, not being as efficient as Nick Foles. But it's like, Carson can't throw the ball up to himself and then go catch it. His receivers are dropping passes left and right in the end zone, in clutch situations when we're supposed to come through and win the game. It is just very, very frustrating to see, and I wish that statistic would change at some point. So we're going to move to Cashman, and his rant is on the powerhouses of baseball.
Yeah, the Dodgers and the Astros both being forced to play Game 5s. That's embarrassing, with the Dodgers even losing last night to the Nationals after Clayton Kershaw comes in and gives up back-to-back home runs to Rendon and Soto. That's embarrassing. Dave Robertson has to take a long look at himself. The management has to take a long look at Dave Robertson. I wouldn't even be surprised if the Rays do come back. I mean, they're so hot playing in Tampa. Now they have to go back to Houston. And then even when you don't, I mean, Verlander has to play this game, and then you have to go play the Yankees, and that's not going to be a very fun time for the Houston Astros. So
do you still think the Astros, if they win tonight, will be able to bounce back in time for the Yankees?
It's going to be tough because they have to play Verlander in this Game 5. They might have to use another starter. So I don't think so. I don't think they get past the Yankees.
All right. Well, Jamie, we're going to come to you. And even though we just had a pretty positive Flyers talk, that doesn't happen a lot. But your rant is on the Flyers, and you kind of alluded to it in the beginning.
Yeah, I just think that it's like our inconsistency with like how we play is just so frustrating. I will be a loyal Flyers fan until I die, but I just think that with our the way our preseason went, like we lost almost every game besides one, and the game that we did win was against the Rangers, which made me very happy. But I think that like you got to play your preseason how you're going to play your regular season games, and we did win the first two games, which is again great. But like I just think that I don't want that inconsistency. I want to like know that we're going to play how we're going to play the rest of the season. And like after watching those preseason games, I was just like, oh no.
Yeah, sure. That's certainly fair, especially when you have your key players playing. So that's going to do it for this week's edition of Sports Talk Philly. You can catch us on social media at Sports Talk LTV. Find us on Facebook at LaSalle TV, and you can also find us on YouTube as well as every other LaSalle TV show on there. We hope you enjoy your weekend. We're going to be rooting for another Birds victory, and we'll see you next week.